Welcome to the webinar. I'm Heidi Tennant, NAPFA Senior Coordinator of Membership and Continuing Ed. Our moderator for this NAPFA peer-to-peer panel today, sorry, my screen closed there, is Steve Crawford, and our panelists are Meg Bartelt, I hope I said that right, Cameo Roberson, and Mary Beth, I should ask you first, Storjohann?
Storjohann, yeah.
Storjohann. All right, Steve, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Heidi. Hi, Meg, Cameo, and Mary. How are you? Mary Beth, sorry. You prefer the full name, Mary Beth, or just Mary?
Yeah, Mary Beth. Mary Beth.
Mary Beth, excellent. Good afternoon, everybody. It is good morning from me. It's the last time I'll say it. It's 6 a.m. in Australia, so I'm trying to give myself an excuse as to why I might look a little bit tired and bleary-eyed. But hey, welcome to the world of virtual advice, where you can try your best to make things as close as possible to what they would have been like when we were in our offices. But sometimes you get the timing schedule wrong and you miss it by 2 hours and it's a 6 a.m. webinar and not an 8 a.m. one, and you just don't look very good. But that, thankfully, where I'm lacking, my three panelists and guests today are absolutely going to make up for it. And I am very excited to have Meg, Cameo, and Mary Beth on the call with me today to actually have more of a panel discussion than I think what we're used to when we go to webinars these days, which is presentations and things like that, because I want to get these three ladies' expert opinion on what does it actually mean to be virtual advice ready. Some of them they all three have different opinions on how they've moved into a virtual advice. Some have started straight at virtual, and then others have transitioned. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is just throw it open to my panelists just to give everybody a brief description of yourself, your firm, the usual drill. I know you've all done these 1,000 times before, so let's go left to right on my screen. Meg, do you want to take the floor?
Sure. Hi, my name is Meg Bartelt, for the record, and I run a firm called Flow Financial Planning. Next month marks its 4th anniversary. And we work with women in their early to mid careers in the tech industry. I used to be in the tech industry in the Bay Area, which Cameo is why I used to live there. And I currently live in Bellingham, Washington, where I have not seen the sun in a very long time because it's in the Pacific Northwest. And my firm has been virtual since day one, in part because women in their early to mid-career in tech don't actually live here for the most part. And well, I guess it's primarily for that reason, but it's worked out really well. And
awesome, thank you. Cameo, over to you.
Yes, hi everyone, Cameo Roberson here, and I have a unique story. So I have been in the profession since 2001, working for a number of different corporate RIAs. Got started really in operations and helping firms figure out what their best systems and processes should be, as well as doing a lot of client-facing work. And so over the course of time, when I recognized that I had that entrepreneurship bug and wanted my own firm, I decided to launch Atlas Park Finance, which is a fee-only RIA, working with women who are looking to transition from employee to entrepreneur. So these are women who are looking to start a business, but they just don't know how. And so they want a business plan and a financial strategy in order to do so. Leveraging my operations background, I also launched Atlas Park Consulting, which is a practice management focused practice agency for financial advisors, helping them figure out what their best systems and processes should be so that they can grow and scale. And from day one, I offered my services as virtual because honestly, I was tired of the Bay Area traffic and wanted to be able to work with individuals across the country. And so the company is really a melding of all of my corporate experience.
Okay, so as in true virtual advice fashion, I missed part of what Cameo said there. So I'm just going to check in with the group to see whether it's just me that's missing what Cameo is saying, or if anybody else. Did you hear, Mary, Beth, and Meg, did you hear everything that Cameo said?
I heard it
I
all.
did, yes.
Yep.
Or did you miss bits
Okay.
and pieces?
Nope,
Yep,
got it
I
all.
heard everything.
Excellent, great. So we've proven it is Australia's work. We're going to blame it on the down under people. Okay, that is good. As long as you can hear everything, that is the most important part. Mary Beth, over to you.
Sure. So my name is Mary Beth Storjohann. I am the Chief Marketing Officer and partner at Abacus Wealth Partners. I actually merged in my own company, Workable Wealth. I merged in March of 2019. So I've been with the firm for just over a year and took the CMO role. So Workable Wealth, I had launched virtually as well after spent a decade in the industry, managed the financial planning department, then launched Workable Wealth virtually. And when I merged into Abacus, we have over 60 employees. I became CMO and took on a marketing team as well. And I also have clients continued from my firm that I merged in. So I now run the marketing department. There's a team of 5 of us that I manage virtually there. And I also have my own team that I had merged in from Workable Wealth. So I'll be able to speak to managing a team as well. But that's my story.
Okay. Thank you. And for those of you that, well, for everybody who doesn't know me, which is 95%, so I have my own firm as well. Experience Wealth was financial planning for 10 years. I gave my license back to the government in June of last year to focus 100% on financial coaching. So we do financial coaching in our business, and we have financial planners that we refer out to, because I am a good financial planner, but I'm a great financial coach. So I stopped being a half-assed good planner to focus on the other stuff. We didn't start virtually. We started old school. When I came out of corporate, 10 years in corporate, and went and got an office in the city next to the water. Couldn't afford the rent, but that was what you did. And then moved to virtual. We went 100% virtual in July, but we'd been 90% virtual for probably 6 years, and I was scared of getting rid of my office. So I want to talk to each of you about who's sort of just gone straight into the virtual space, but I know there'll be a lot of people on the call right now that probably still have a bricks and mortar, an office that they like to go back to. And please let us know in the questions. And I know, Heidi, you there, we actually have a couple of polls that we're going to run as well. Are we able to go to the first poll now, if that's okay? There we go. So what we want to do first of all is get a sense of where everybody else is actually at right now. So we've got a couple of different, there should be 3 questions in this first poll. Now we actually don't vote on that. So we want to get a sense of where you're at across, I suppose, the 3 core aspects of running the firm virtually, being the clients, being your team, and then from a personal or from a family or in a household point of view. We just want to get a sense of where everyone's at right now. So first question, on average, how would you say your client interactions are going right now compared to before the situation that we're in? All right, so about 68% are at the same, which is good. And Heidi, you'll be able to move us to the next question, I'm assuming. All right, team, same question, team. So for those of you that do have a team, how would you say your team interactions are going right now? Much worse, worse, same, better, or much better?
Okay.
So getting a same for team. I get a sense of where this is going. Let's see how this last one plays out though. How has your mental and physical well-being been during this new normal as well?
I want to talk to anyone who comes up with better or much better.
What are you doing?
Now, to give everybody a comparison as well, I asked these exact same questions in a webinar, exact same webinar that I did.
Mm.
Yeah, good. A little bit more, well, not good, but it's good. Everybody knows what I mean. It's yeah, to Meg's point, I reckon if everybody said this has been the best thing that's ever happened to me, we'd be asking a question around that one. And just for the lucky ducks that are also now part-time teachers as well, for our kids, just let us know how you're actually handling this whole tricky work-life school balancing act. Okay, that's not too bad.
Okay.
The Aussies are not handling it as well. Maybe it's just us. I don't know what it's like in America. Online alcohol sales have gone through the roof in Australia. We had a rush on toilet paper, and then when everybody figured out they might close the bottle shops, there was a rush on our biggest bottle shop, which is just says a lot about a country, really, doesn't it? When that's what they've decided to do. But thank you, everybody.
My husband said we were running low on red wine the other day, and I told him that was the worst thing you could possibly tell me. So
yeah, you have 12 underneath the kitchen sink. That's not the bathroom, that's not the toilet paper, that's the bottles of red wine. So okay, it's really and I'll share with you what the Aussies have said later on after the webinar as well, just so you can get a sense of what's happening around the world. But Meg, since you're the client self-appointed, well, I've appointed you as a client expert
Sure.
across this. Are those results what you thought you would have seen, with given you started from scratch in terms of going straight to virtual? Did you think that everybody would transition as well as what they have? And how are you finding the interactions now as well?
Yeah, that surprised me that that the majority of people were doing the same, and the super majority were doing same or better than they were before, in terms of both team interaction and client interaction, and personal and mental health. I mean, I've always been virtual, but my physical and mental health has definitely taken a hit during this time. I'm really glad to see that everyone, or not everyone, but that the majority of people are doing at least as well virtually as they were in a physical environment, because I have gotten the impression from the many queries I've gotten that people think the virtual environment is this sort of magical, mystical thing that is entirely different from running a physical office. And there are the obvious differences, and you can't deal with paper anymore. So if you're a paper-based office, you have to figure out how to transition to things like DocuSign or online portals, that sort of thing. But a lot of the relationship skills, which I think, which really, that's what's going to get us through this, right? The relationship skills with our clients can transition very easily to an online environment, especially when everyone in this country, I think, is feeling very compassionate at this point towards other people, right? They're willing to put up with mistakes that other people make, because we all know we're all sort of doing the best we can in a difficult environment. So it's sort of the best time, I think, to transition to virtual, because more of your mistakes will be forgiven than would normally be made if you're making this choice sort of in a sort of discretionary way. Yeah.
So Cameo, how are you finding that your clients are feeling? I know all three of you sort of started pretty much virtually, and Mary Beth, I'll get your opinion on how Abacus is handling it in a second compared to Workable Wealth when you started out there. But Cameo, how are you finding the clients are finding the virtual meetings now compared to when you started doing them? Because I would have imagined, I know when we started doing them virtually 4 or 5 years ago, it was a new thing to do a virtual meeting. And there may have been some pushback initially around, again, whether it's actually as good. Now, if they want to meet with you, there's no choice. So are you finding that there's a mind shift for them to go, well, maybe there's the barriers being dropped, that I don't have a choice, so let's just go into it and see how this goes?
Yes, I am absolutely seeing kind of that shift from recognizing that you can have an effective virtual meeting. Prior to the pandemic, I think people were just used to habits of meeting with their financial advisor in person. But what has happened is this has forced us to really look at how efficient we can run our practices. Clients are recognizing I don't have to drive in traffic to get to my advisor. I can actually, meet with him or her on a Zoom call, and they're starting to see the benefits of being able to work virtually with their advisor. One thing I'm seeing with my consulting clients, some of them were not as eager to embrace the virtual model. And when we got slapped into this over the last 5 to 6 weeks, a big scramble started to happen. But slowly over the course of time, they're getting more comfortable with the technology and making sure they have the right processes in place to continue to work with their clients well. But I'm definitely seeing people are more apt to having virtual meetings.
And Mary Beth, from a since you was it late 2019 or mid 2019 when you merged in with Abacus?
Mid 2019. So
Okay,
March,
so
early.
was Abacus already running things virtually mid 2019, or is this something that you brought with you?
They didn't have a fully virtual team, but we have offices around the country. So we have a handful of offices in California. We have an office in India. So we're used to working with the team from multiple offices to run things virtual. So me being part of the executive team, and then also running my clients virtually. That is new, but have been set up with laptops, and we have flexible work hours for our staff. So we already have the technology in place, so that when this transition happened, everybody basically was already able to work from home in some capacity. And our biggest question was like, should we bring the big monitors to our houses, or should we leave those here and just work off of the laptops? So it's been a pretty smooth transition. But one of the biggest things that I learned running my own firm virtually and then merging it, and knowing that some others are not used to working virtually, right? So we actually, as we were making the decision to close down offices, I actually sent out virtual client meetings guidelines to all of the team members of how to set up your laptop so people aren't staring up your nose on the camera, what a background looks like. So there's been a transition. People have responded. Our clients have responded. And it's mostly just it's been pretty smooth for us, but it has been different.
Have you had any feedback from some of the team members that might not have been as virtually prepared as what you were in terms of their things that they were finding weren't working, or things that they were stressed with? And it's a question I know, because I know Cameo and Meg, that you're solo advisors, but I know you also get asked a bucket load of questions from advisors all the time. So we'll go across all three of you. Mary Beth, just quickly, any feedback from the Abacus team on things that they were finding challenging, and that since they've made the shift?
Yeah, one of the biggest things is just that inter-office connection. So when you do have a team, when you're at a larger firm, you're used to being able to pop into somebody's office and answer a question. So that's been one of the things, trying to navigate around that. And so we've started doing water cooler talks, where we'll just like do a pop-up talk on Google Hangouts once a week or topic, whether it's mortgage refinancing. They just did another one this week, but they're labeling them water cooler talks. So like, come hang out, have a chat, learn about something. And so there's casual ways we're getting around that, but I think that inter-office connection has been one of the things that people are struggling. And then there's other, just invest in really good internet right now. Like, everybody just pay for the best internet. Because some people are having connection issues also, and so that's one of the things. Watch mine drop now. But some of those other things, I think that's the biggest, is the personal connections that people are used to, and that's been the biggest transition, not with clients, but even with just like employees.
Meg, what are you, I know again you field a lot of queries from industry peers around this. What are they telling you is there from a client point of view? And we're going to have we'll break the questions up later we'll go deeper into the team questions, and then we'll have a look at some of the tech issues and things like that. But staying on the client theme right now, what are your peers asking you for help with in terms of navigating the transition from a client point of view?
From a client point of view, honestly, the most common question is, how do you still prospect in a virtual environment? which is a very hard question for me, because if I were to ask a question, it would be, how does one prospect in the physical world? I
Yeah.
have no idea. And my answer is not very helpful. It's like, oh, well, just start creating content, and like maybe a year from now, something will start to, catch fire. Because that's how I did it. My first year in business sucked. But I was consistently creating content online, blog, getting published in sort of relevant online publications for my target market. And then after 12 months, the flywheel started to move, and it's been moving ever since. So I feel grossly inadequate in answering that question for people. I don't know if it's possible to really quickly ramp up online marketing. I mean, you can like pay for Facebook ads and LinkedIn campaigns and all that. I just have no experience with them. Yeah.
Cameo?
Yeah, there's actually I'm getting the same question from a lot of my clients. How do we prospect, right? Nobody's having in-person meetings, nobody is going out. So how can you then start to leverage social media in order to prospect? And I agree with you, Meg. It's not something you can just immediately get out there and do. What you got to think about is your strategy. How do you want to show up in front of your potential prospects, number one, and then number two, where are they? Are they on LinkedIn? Are they on Facebook? Are they on other social media platforms? And so that's been one of the biggest things. And I myself, having been virtual from day one, started to study LinkedIn and to figure out how you can actually do virtual networking in a very positive and constructive way. And so there are opportunities, but I would just let everyone know you really want to think about your strategy. And you think about it, everybody's at home right now, right? So you have their captive attention. And then on top of that, people are actually searching for help. They want help, but to Meg's point, you need to have somewhat of a digital footprint, establish content, your website, blogs, et cetera, for people to be able to connect with you.
Can I jump in there? One of the things I agree, this is actually a topic that we're doing a sales training on next month for Abacus advisors, is how do you stay connected and relevant in a post-COVID world? And one of the things that we're recommending is you're kind of trying to network this with COIs the way that you would have in person. So you would have gone to a coffee, and I'm seeing virtual coffee chats, which is what I've done before, which I did anyways, but virtual coffee chats are popping up on the calendars of other advisors. And so reaching out to those COIs that you have with compassion and empathy as well. I mean, they might have kids running in the background, showing concern for their businesses, and just catching up. It doesn't even have to be about business, but you're staying relevant and connected to those people on a one-on-one basis versus the one-to-many, and that might help you to might make it feel more authentic connection in that way versus you go big as well. We're doing that, but I think there's ways to offer yourself up as out of service to your clients and their audience as well. So for some of my clients are coaches, and so I offered myself to do webinars on PPP loans to their audiences, and they leveraged me. I was able to give them a service, and I did 3 webinars back to back one day for a variety of audiences. And so there's ways to be creative. It doesn't have to be necessarily around creating content to push out on social media. There's other things you can do as well.
So it's a good point that Mary Beth brought up in terms of connected professional relationships, so accounting, legal, other, and we'll circle back around to that in a second, because it's fair to say in Australia, the thing that we've seen is the Aussie advisors have transitioned to virtual probably a little bit better than some of their peers in some of the other industries, but because the Australian financial planning marketplace does rely quite heavily on accounting and legal and even finance to finish the job, they're sort of feeling like they're dragging the other partners along with them. So I'll get each of your views on how you're dealing with your professional networks to help finish the job. But Meg, I'll throw back to you to pick up on the conversation around, so agree, and prospecting, and that's the challenge of building your digital footprint and assuming everybody's doing that or can get to that point where that is coming through. I think one of the biggest reservations or fears is the initial prospecting, let's call it discovery meeting.
Sure.
And I'm doing that in an in-person, and I can, if I'm a bloke, if I can shake the hands, I'm a female, it's a shake the hands, and probably just shaking hands is such a foreign thing now. I did it for a guy that came and delivered something the other day, and then he looked at me like I was a monster. But you know what I mean? Like we've lost I think the biggest fear in going virtual is you lose the tactile, you lose the ability to, and it's hard, you know, how do you demonstrate emotion? How have you crafted that skill over the years, and how can you help those that are probably doing it maybe more for the first time? How do you get the emotion across in some of those first meetings when it's really critical to try and build a connection and some sort of start of trust with a prospective client?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think the same behaviors, minus the ones that involve physical touch, you can absolutely do just as readily in an online meeting. It's obvious that all three of us panelists have done that since the beginning of our firm effectively, right? We've all grown our firms. But I am also going through the Kinder life planning process right now, which has given me sort of additional tools and actually some pretty mind-blowing techniques for really showing empathy, right? That is sort of the foundation of the life planning process. It all starts with showing empathy, which people receive as simply, oh, this person cares about what I think, they care about how I feel, and they care about my future. And empathy is pretty damn simple. I mean, fake it if you gotta. Eventually it will be like real to you. But it's eye contact. Like you can still make eye contact via screen. You know, maybe subtle bodily movements need to be made a little bit less subtle now. Like bigger movements. Like I find myself nodding a lot, like guttural sounds. Yeah. Just staying engaged and making it about the client, right? One of the things that really shifted for me with this Kinder life planning was before the way I established bond with a client was, oh, you went to my alma mater? I went, obviously I went there too. Or you like to swim? I like to swim. Or what style of yoga do you do? Bonding over these shared characteristics, which inserts me directly into the middle of the conversation and of the relationship, which is not where I belong. The client or the prospective client belongs in the middle. And so the way you establish the bond is to show that you care about them. It doesn't matter what shared history we have. Like, yes, that might ease things and like you can have fun conversations around it, but you can bond with people who are utterly unlike you if you are showing empathy and appreciation for, hurdles they've overcome, for aspirations they have. If you are showing enthusiasm and optimism that they can have this life that they want, that is totally doable over, a video call. I would say it's a lot harder over phone, right? The visual contact. I used to do prospect calls over phones. I shifted to Zoom. I shifted to online just because just the voice is not enough. You have to be able to, I need to be able to see the prospect's body language, uncomfortable, nervous, sad, depressed, whatever. Or if they start describing something in their life and they get this smile and they're expansive, I'm just like, yeah, that is the thing. That is the thing that gives them energy to move in this life. So that needs to be a core part of our work together. So it's being attentive, it's being present. And unlike what I'm doing now, which is like jabbering nonstop, it's mostly being quiet.
Yes.
So Cameo, I'll give the baton to you to run with on, and Meg made a really good point around phone conversations versus Zoom conversations. So I think a lot of planners, maybe more so in Australia, and it'll be interesting to get your view on this. The fear of doing something wrong stops them from the potential upside of doing something right. So I know one of the big things was when Zoom was, because we're all now Zooming instead of virtual meetings, it's become the new label for it. Shout out GoToMeeting for today's technology. But we're all doing this, I think the fear was we've gone for, well, what would happen especially in some of the bigger firms, and Mary Beth, I'll get your view on this in a second, was the prospect would come in or there'd be an email and then there'd be a phone call, and that's the way that we would start, and we'd go from a phone call to an actual physical meeting. It's like, well, you're now saying, and to Meg's point, but you can't see them if you're just doing a phone call. So how have you found the transition, and A, for your own clients, and then some feedback from those advisors that you're working with around shifting their psychology from it needing to follow the same process that they've done, which is phone call to physical meeting, and just going, no, we're just going to go straight to a virtual meeting and we're going to put the videos on right from the beginning?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for a lot of my clients who were not used to having virtual meetings, they were afraid, right? You're not sure how you're going to use the technology, how you're going to be perceived using the technology. And so there was a training period for a number of advisors just getting comfortable using Zoom or other video conferencing platforms. And then they had to take it a step further and make sure that their clients were comfortable using the technology, because that is a part of the full client experience. If a client can't get on and connect with you smoothly, they can't see you, there's a lot of technical hiccups, that can then create a lot of apprehension and anxiety in both the advisor and the client. So those who have been able to test the equipment, get the right setup, the right camera, headset, background, they're finding that this is actually a lot easier than I thought. The meetings don't have to be perfect, but to Meg's point, you really want to express empathy and smiling and looking for, gestures from the prospect to kind of see where they are and how they're feeling, and the head nods, all of those things can be conveyed. I look at us here on this call, and I feel like we're having a great dialogue about what the realities of how virtual meetings can happen. So I think advisors just need to think about that this is a new opportunity to connect with prospective clients across the board, not just those who are in your current pipeline, but those who are actually across the country, across the world in some respects. And so they're new opportunities. But I think with a little bit of planning and making sure that, their process is complete and clear, advisors can definitely thrive using video conferencing and making that real connection with prospects. And I think they'll really appreciate it too, because think about it. Now nobody has to drive across country through traffic to meet with you. They can meet with you from the comforts of their home and still make that valid connection.
Mary Beth, on that point.
I completely agree. Having empathy, the eye contact, from the opportunity standpoint, when we've had clients, obviously we've been bringing on clients throughout this time as well. So I think advisors have been surprised at how easy it is, because there's still some hesitancy as well, especially when if you have an office space, you rely on that office space, and you don't typically want to shake up the status quo. But I've found that our advisors have adapted quite well, and there's also the opportunity of seeing inside a prospect's life, right? Just by seeing the background, just by hearing the noises that are happening in their home, you can connect with them on a different level than if you would in an office. And I think that's what we've all seen, because we've been virtual the whole time and we've been yelling from the mountaintops, I'm sure, is these unique opportunities that you have. And that's been the greatest thing for me to see about this is there's kids running in the back and in and out of, there's spouses that are home. People are more relaxed also if they're in their own home and sitting on their couch, depending on where you're meeting. So I think there is opportunity, and to take it from that perspective of comment on their artwork. If there's a family picture, ask about, if you hear something in the background, ask about it. And there's other ways, I think, to connect with those prospects as well, and your clients during this time, to strengthen the relationships.
And Steve, I had one additional thing to say, which is we're not just transitioning to virtual now. I mean, we, broadly speaking, we're transitioning to virtual during an extremely scary time, right? So your experience as a virtual advisor now is not just the virtual advisor experience. It is an experience when the people in your professional world are probably more stressed out across the client base than they've ever been. So, I mean, my work has in some ways been less pleasant in the last 6 weeks or 2 months. There's a real emotional weight to all client interactions now. On the other hand, it's more beautiful than it's ever been because of that same emotional weight. But I guess I want to make sure that people understand that they transition to virtual now, what they're going to experience as a virtual planner now is not the same than what they would have experienced 6 months ago, and hopefully 6 months from now, when perhaps we're not all suffering under this sort of pall of uncertainty, uncertainty and fear.
Yeah,
That's a great point.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity to segue into the sort of slightly broader ecosystem that we all operate within in terms of professional partnerships, and I touched on Mary Beth brought it up, and then I said we'll talk about how are you dealing with the other peers that you're working with that you require to finish the job, whether it's an external accounting expert or maybe Mary Beth, in your point of view, an internal external expert, because you're part of a bigger team. But I know, Meg, you're running team. You've got a virtual team that you're working with as well. How do you find internally? Well, I suppose it's okay for all of you because you've been doing it forever. But what about the accountants, lawyers, anybody that you need to help finish the job? How are you helping politely and professionally bring them along up? Because I think this is one of the things that clients experience, and some of our clients, because we've been doing it for a while as well, have said, you're all over the virtual meeting stuff. I had a meeting with insert name of other profession, not so much. So maybe that's where my fear when I first started doing this was, I don't have the fancy office anymore that I'm going to be meeting. So I might get judged when they go into the top end of town and they get the fancy coffee and they get that sort of stuff. Now it's almost flipped around. It's like they didn't know how to turn the camera on. How are you finding that experience and helping your peers lift their game to complete the client story?
I don't think I have much to add there, because my focus is with women in the tech industry, and all of my allied professionals have also effectively work with that demographic. So I'm going to pass it to Mary Beth to see if she has anything more meaningful to add.
Being also having launched virtually, I also connected with COIs who have been virtual as well for the most part. From what I can tell from the transitions, though, it's mostly figuring out. So, for example, for Abacus right now, we are ruling out Zoom for most meetings. So now we are using Google Hangouts, and so it's getting people. It's the technology and getting, okay, here's the link to click, and it's being patient with them as well. So if we're doing a coffee hangout or Google Meet, and you want to connect with somebody, it's corresponding via email for the most part, not necessarily picking up to call somebody, and then it's emails, and it's helping to be patient with and inviting people into those meetings. But for the most part, the COIs that I personally have been already used to leveraging technology in those ways, and if they're not, it's there's a few that I do a phone call and then we refer back to a Google Meet, and it's really just getting comfortable with like clicking a few links, and there's too much of a lag from the connection. It's mostly we have the issue of the paperwork processing and those people who have not really transitioned to online. And then it goes back to what Meg said about empathy is all we can really do during this time, especially with those relationships. If they're COIs, empathy, patience, understanding across the board are struggling and trying to juggle it all right now. So especially if those people are COIs from that perspective, just a lot of empathy and offering yourself as a resource as you would in any other way.
Cameo?
Yeah, absolutely. To Mary Beth's point, since I have two very unique groups of clients that I work with, the COIs that I have been in contact with, really just helping them get familiar with the technology, right? And being a resource, to Mary Beth's point, and providing value check sheets, where basically instruction sheets of how to use certain technology so that they can get more comfortable with it and then serve their existing clients better. But really being patient with people, practicing empathy, being a resource, and reaching out to let people know that you can help them has been the biggest things. And then from me working with my advisory clients, helping them figure out how they're currently leveraging their technology, and doing a tech audit and figuring out, where are the service gaps, where are the tech gaps, and how can you streamline things so that your client has a much better experience working with you from the entire client journey, from prospecting, onboarding, all the way to, the ongoing relationship.
So we might use that opportunity to segue into the tech questions, which I'm always excited and reticent to talk about because not because of the three of you, but because what tends to come through on the outside. But how are you? So Meg, I'll start with you again on this one from a tech point of view. What else goes into your stack other than just to enhance the virtual meeting experience? Because obviously everybody starts and stops with the virtual meeting connection. What else have you found, or what else did you realize that you needed to make that part work really, really well? And the $1 million question, which piece of virtual meeting software are you using, and how are you handling 17-part question, and how are you handling any of the pushback from a data security point of view?
Yeah. Okay. Video conferencing software, Zoom. I've been on Zoom for 3 years. When I started my firm, I think I started with Join Me, and the connectivity was just crap. Like I don't even know how that product exists. Zoom has been wonderful. Data security, for one, I have heard Zippo from my client base about it, and I attribute that in part to the fact that they're all in tech, and they're like, oh, software is insecure, like color me surprised. But also just the way we use Zoom is I lock the meeting after everyone's in. I'm not, all those scary stories about, people bombing Zoom meetings. Well, that was for like high school classes where some disgruntled child put the Zoom URL in like a Reddit channel. My clients are not trying to sabotage me. So, I haven't even implemented passwords. It's just like I wait for my one client to log in and my associate planner, and then I lock the meeting and we're done. And yes, I have a static URL even. And, in terms of hardware, like my Janet Jackson, like control era headset here, literally like Plantronics cheapest is hardwired. I'm a huge fan of hardwired. I use a desktop instead of a laptop. My desktop is hardwired. I have an Ethernet cable. I do not rely on Wi-Fi. In fact, my transformer blew a couple months ago because it fried a squirrel, and I was in the middle of a meeting and just everything went black. And I was like, oh, well, that is embarrassing and unfortunate. So we got an uninterrupted power supply so that for just more resilience rather in the meeting experience, right? Everything is hardwired when it can be, and I've got power backup. Yeah, and I guess other elements of my tech stack for client purposes. Use Google Drive for internal file management and for file sharing going out, because we do a lot of analysis in Google Sheets. We keep meeting notes in Google Docs. And the Google shared drives actually have very simple to implement permissions. So it's really easy to manage permissions in shared drives. And then for clients submitting stuff to us, we have them do it through the financial planning software vault. So it comes in through Right Capital and it goes out through Google Drive. All of my clients are very familiar with the Googleverse. So again, I benefit all the time from the fact that my client base works in tech. So none of this is surprising. None of this is foreign. And they don't get, no panties are twisted.
Cameo?
Yeah, so from my perspective, I got my laptop in front of me. I also have 2 monitors to the right of me because I wanted to be able to, see a lot of client data on multiple screens, because financial planners, we have to use multiple software platforms. So that has been a great help. Definitely my calendar scheduler that I have synced with Zoom. Like Meg, I've been using Zoom since day one, and have, meeting passwords and unique links created for each one of my client meetings. And because I have it automated, I don't have to worry about going in and creating it through Zapier. It just links it automatically and includes reminders as well, which helps me not having to remember all the calls.
So which calendar
Dropbox.
booking software are you using?
Yeah, I use Schedule Once.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, use schedule once, and I know you too, and I know a lot of people use Calendly. There's a lot of options that are out there that will just make you working with your clients a whole lot easier. Definitely Dropbox for internal client data, and then I also use Google Drive because I just found that was easiest to use in relaying data and information to individuals. But when it comes to, your own kind of, in-house policy, just think about, your own best practices. What are the best ways to secure your client data, and use your best judgment in order to do that.
Mary Beth, where you said you made the call of switching away from Zoom. What was the catalyst behind that?
Security. So when you give up your own firm, you give up some of the decision making in areas of tech, which is part of why I merged, to be honest. So I shouldn't be picking out tech. So Zoom, actually, we made the call I think just a few weeks ago. So it was the security, all of the breach stuff, and so we have a whole tech team who made the call that we'll be using Google Hangouts, Google Meet for going forward for client meetings. So we do use Zoom for like training sessions. I still use it for webinars. I used it on my own at Workable Wealth. That was what I used as well, up until like 3 weeks ago, and they told us no more. We think the company announcement was specifically for our team to not use Zoom anymore. But before pre-merger, I used ShareFile for documents for clients, and at Abacus we use Box. Also use Google Drive as well in terms of doing analysis. I have a lot of small business owner clients. There's a lot of projections and things we would do back and forth with Google Sheets. So ShareFile, Google Drive, and then now at Abacus it is Google Hangouts, Google Meet, Box, and we started using Google Drive. I think those are like the main one for staying in contact with clients, and all of the online signing as well, DocuSign, all of that stuff.
So we've got about 10 minutes left, and we might have to leave some time in case there's a couple of questions, but let's circle around to the team management side, and then we're going to finish with what do you recommend everybody keeps from their little virtual experiment, good, bad, or otherwise, when they go back to being able to hang out in the office if they are having four walls and a door. But let's start with the team stuff. Meg, you run a team of 4, I think, is that right?
Three including me.
Okay, 3 including me. Asking you how you're managing morale right now probably seems like the way I've always managed morale from day one, but can you share some of the things different. Yeah,
I mean, in the same way that our relationships with our clients are different right now, because everyone is in a different emotional space. It has changed a little bit with my team. I mean, a very practical thing is I gave each of them a stipend to buy stuff to make their home office better, however they wanted to. I mean, they've always worked in that home office, but prior to this, they were actually able to leave, and now they can't, right? So at least to make their physical environment a little more enjoyable. I hope it was also sort of a signal of my care for them. So there's that. We do meet, we have quarterly offsites, so they're virtual, but they all live within driving distance. My CSA lives about 45 minutes away. My associate planner lives about 3 hours away. So we had, for example, an annual offsite in December, and we were supposed to have a quarterly offsite in March. Didn't happen in person, so we had it online, and it wasn't as nice. Like, we didn't get to go to the coffee shop and get like the delicious cinnamon rolls and the lattes, and then go to the nice restaurant on the water for lunch. It was very productive, but the emotional tenor was different and not as good. And so I have been very open about sort of my own emotional struggles, might be a bit too strong of a way of describing it, but the fact that this is an unpleasant time for me. And sometimes work feels more oppressive lately than it did, say, 6 months ago. But I don't know whether to attribute that to something's like fundamentally wrong in the business, or, oh, we're all under quarantine. And so hoping that by conveying that and explicitly saying, basically, if you are feeling the same way, of course you are, right? It is okay. I do not expect the same level of like, woo, let's go, enthusiasm, and just like on it. If you are tired, if you need to take time off, like, this is like, I know you can't actually leave, but you can like take time off and read a book or something, just trying to make them understand. And again, we're a very small shop, so there's lots of flexibility. But just really trying to make it clear to them that I want them to do what's needful to take care of themselves. Much like I say about my own children, I'm like, look, I don't care if you guys have to repeat grades. I want you to get through this with your physical and emotional and mental health intact. It's analogous in my team. Like, I don't need to grow the business through this quarantine. Things can even start sliding a little bit, but I want each of us mentally emerging from this healthy enough and like ready to then resume sort of the push or whatever it is. I'm fine with treading water for now because I don't think it's fair to expect anything more. And I mean, I don't expect anything more of myself right now.
Cameo, what about one of the things that Meg brought up, which I probably should have asked earlier, was daily structure. When you've got bricks and mortars, part of that structure is topped and tailed by the drive. Some people find there's been a lot of research into optimizing the actual length of time that your daily drive to or from the office should be so that you actually have time to downtime from the work environment. So work you to not work you. How do you do that? Because I know my walk, that's why I've got to should have kept my voice down. My wife knows I'm doing this, so she'll wake up anyway. But like my bedroom is 10 feet that way, and now bang, I'm in my office. So it's hard to go, I'm out of work mode. How do you do that, both for yourself and for the people that you work with?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the things that I did when I first got started is I wanted to make sure that I kept a set schedule. So having designated work hours, whether that's, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., your choice. But I think it's really important to have structure to your day. The second thing I would say is having a dedicated workspace, if at all possible. I know people have families and children, and you may not have, one room where you can go and just be by yourself. But having a consistent place to do your work is definitely something that's going to help give structure to your day. And then also make sure you communicate with your family, kind of what your work hours are going to be so that they know that mom or dad or whomever is working, and then that's clear. And then also remembering to eat. Sometimes I'm working so much, I don't remember to eat. And it's like, what? I have a headache now. Sometimes we can get so caught up in the daily grind that we don't take breaks. We don't go and have a meal. So make sure you're doing that. And then make sure you're also doing some self-care. So when it's time to turn work off, turn it off and go and read a book or watch some TV or spend time with your family. But having some sense of structure and what makes the most sense for you and your family is going to make the most sense. And then additionally, what I share with my advisory clients is the same thing. A lot of them have remote teams that they're working with, to Meg's point. And so you want to check in with your people. You want to check in and see how they're doing. Having weekly meetings where you can just check in and get an assessment of how the team is performing and what they're struggling with. And I think that's going to go a long way because then your people will know that you care about where they are physically as well as mentally.
There's no issues in the Crawford household. I've remapped every corridor so it points at the fridge, so I know exactly where that is. It's easy to find. Mary Beth, you talked about your water cooler meetings. Outside of the water cooler stuff, how are you helping the team in terms of structuring their day, structuring their connectivity, managing and measuring morale, and given you've sort of got that responsibility, that shared responsibility, or that sole responsibility now of managing the team, how are you finding that?
So with our teams, they're structured with an advisor and then they have their own team. So advisors are scheduling their own weekly meetings with their team. Some of the offices are doing weekly sessions, or actually daily morning sessions with just come hang out for 30 minutes and just like catch up. No, not work related, just kind of share. So there's different ways of doing that. Personally, for my teams, for advisory and then also for marketing, we do weekly meetings. Weekly huddle of getting together, kind of catching up on things. And then we use an app called Voxer, is what I've used with my team since early on. And we also have chat. So for Voxer, it's a really easy way for us to stay in contact and pop in throughout the day to just send a walkie-talkie kind of message, or like somebody can listen to it if they can. But that's been a really casual way for us to stay connected. So it's that, and then also we've done a couple firm happy hours. Like 35 people have jumped on a happy hour at 5 o'clock on a Wednesday. We've done a couple of those. We also we launched a rebrand and a new website for Abacus like the week that everything hit the fan in March. That, like, I mean, it was the worst timing ever. And so we had all this stuff, and I was like, cut it all. And then we just did a small happy hour for our team, a virtual happy hour that we kind of organized for ourselves and took all the messaging down. Or I mean, just never published it, but it's just kind of connecting. We keep it like a mental health checks, like how are you doing, like what's going on. I like Meg, like I talk about my tiny humans all the time. I have a 4 and a 2-year-old that I'm locked up with, and I love them dearly. But I mean, there's just my 4-year-old wants to pop on screen if she happens to sneak in, and it's just I share about that, and I leave space for them to come and kind of air their concerns. And the biggest thing that I have tried to do is be their cheerleader throughout this. Be a space where they can come and kind of talk, but also cheerlead them and remind them they're doing a great job. That they, and just if anything, to give themselves grace and time, but really trying to just let them know that they owe it more to themselves to take care of themselves right now. Like, I don't want them ever thinking that I'm disappointed in the level of work or output that they're doing. So as their manager, I want to model that for them, and that grace and empathy for them the same way that I would encourage clients to for themselves.
Yeah, I think all three of you have had a brilliant way of sort of tying up to the last thing that we're going to do now. And I've got to stress, when we go to the polls now, Heidi's asked me to remind everybody that answering the polls is not a requirement to get our CE points or your CE points. So don't freak if you can't answer the polls. But we'll go to the last poll now, because what we want to do is get a sense of what are you going to keep out of this? And so while everybody's answering that first poll, we'll talk to the backdrop of it. And I think each of you have said it in different ways. You know, the tiny humans, Meg's talked about, you know, having empathy and being more emotionally connected to our clients. And then Cameo, you talked about checking with your partners. I think one of the best things that's come out of this forced evolution and forced new way of doing things is advisors are showing up as humans as opposed to financial experts first and people second. And I think males find this a lot harder to do, not making an excuse, but definitely in Australia, the blokes tend to talk about everything else other than themselves in their own personal world. Maybe because that's just easier to do. But now we're in an environment where we don't have that choice. And it's one of the things that I think all of us should keep when we go back to the new normal. So the first question was around clients, and we'll be able to share that data later, Heidi. And we'll go to the second one, which is around some of the team interactions. You know, what elements of what you've actually done are you planning on keeping? And I'm going to share all of the Australian data that we've collected, and I'm going to share that back through to Heidi and anyone that wants to sort of cross-check against to see what the Aussies said and some of the things that the Aussie financial planners are doing with their teams, with their clients. What are they planning on keeping? So we'll share that across with everybody as well. Good, so we've got some in terms of our team interactions. This one's a little bit more spread out than what we got early on. And then there should be probably one more. Physical and mental well-being. How much more focus are you going to put on this? Less, same, or more? And hopefully, I think we know where these answers are going to land.
Yeah.
Good.
Good. I think
And
this
do we
whole
have,
experience. Oh, go
I
ahead,
think,
Steve.
I was going to say, I think that might be it for the poll questions. And I know, oh no, there we go, one more.
One more.
Last one. Oh, of course, Steve forgets about the family. My wife would be saying, again, how is that a shock to you? You always forget. Learning how to share our home office has been a challenge because my wife was not working from home. She was an office girl every day of the week, and now she's not. And it's been a challenge learning how to share stuff, but a good challenge. I'm winning that challenge now by giving up as much as I possibly can. So in terms of family household, some that's probably closer. That's a lot closer. We all love our kids, but we also love school as well. So looking forward to when that thing reopens. I'm fully conscious that we are at our time limit, but I might just quickly throw to everybody to summarize and just give everyone, the one thing that you want them to focus on when they go back to their next client meeting for the next little while. Meg?
Yeah. I'll go back to a familiar stomping grounds for me, which is I know transitioning from a physical to a virtual environment makes you have to consciously rethink how you relate to your clients, how you communicate with them, how you bond with them. And I think being forced to really think hard about that and the results that come out of that thinking, if you go back to having physical meetings, bring that with you, right? Because I imagine we all get into ruts, and this has forced us out of that rut. And maybe we were relying on like the simple things of like, hey buddy, handshake and like whatever the hell people do. I don't know. But sort of the superficial kind of bonding. Well, it's a lot harder to do superficial bonding over video. It feels fairly superficial. So the bonding that's available to you in a virtual practice can be really profound. And I do hope that even if people go back to a physical environment, they still focus on how was I relating to people that was able to forge that more profound relationship.
Cameo?
Yeah, what I would say is continue to find opportunities to provide value to your clients, whether you're having in-person or virtual meetings. Really let the authentic you shine and show care and concern in a way that's going to be impactful for your clients or prospective clients. Additionally, I will say is to build in some of these things into your firm infrastructure, right? So that your people begin to adopt these things as well. So if they're having virtual meetings with individuals or over the phone, that same care and concern is woven through your entire organization. And so whoever your clients speak to, they get the same care. Then they know that your firm as a whole is operating under the same premise of we care and we're looking to, provide you with the best service.
Mary Beth?
Yeah, I think just same thing, the opportunities that are there, and asking clients and COIs for feedback. After you do a virtual meeting with them and you're doing your follow-up, ask them in the email, how was that meeting for you compared to how when we meet in person? Get their feedback, because a lot of times we're talking about our perspective and we're not really necessarily connecting with the client. So we want to this is a two-way street. So you want to be able to mark and say, oh, this client actually prefers this. This was easier on them. Or so have the conversations with clients as well. This is a really great opportunity to learn more about their preferences.
And the only thing I would add to all of this is we are all in this together, whether we are on your side of the Pacific or our side of the Pacific, we're exactly the same. There's a global community of financial advisors, obviously brilliantly represented inside NAPFA to start with, but outside of the NAPFA community, ask for help. Don't feel like advice can, in some instances, feel like an isolated challenge anyway, and even more so now than ever before. Do not, if you're struggling with any of these elements, even if you're thriving with some of these elements, you might be the sort of person that never asks for help, and you might be the sort of person that never offers to help because you think your help might not be needed. Everybody needs help from everybody. right now. So it doesn't matter what the community is, it doesn't matter where you show up or put your hand up. Make sure you're connecting with everybody else. And on that, I want to thank our three amazing panelists today, Meg, Cameo, and Mary Beth. Thank you for tolerating my sleepy start to this morning and this afternoon, and to Heidi and to NAPFA for putting on our panel/webinar today. Heidi, I'll throw it back to you.
Thank you, Steve.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for such an informative and a reassuring session. Thanks for attending, everybody, and have a great rest of your day. Stay well. Bye now.